Okay, here I have a 2003 crank no start. It's actually a pretty tricky one because normally the stuff we watch, this one passes everything. I'm going to go ahead and try to crank this and watch a FICM sync, FICM M power, ICP pressure, IPR percentage, and RPM. Even though RPM should be okay with FICM sync, we'll still watch it. Mostly what I want to focus on is that ICP voltage. Because watch the pressure, but still watch the voltage and the IPR percentage. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this one. Key on, engine off. FICM M power is great. Okay, here we go with the ICP. Okay, see it's got pressure, at least it says it does. We have no voltage. RPM it sees. FICM sync. Everything's good, but that ICP voltage is going. You can see it's not wanting to start. So this here is actually a pretty tricky one. I'm going to go ahead and look at the circuits and the ICP sensor. Being an 03, this one's on the back. Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
The best way I found to get to the ICP sensor is from underneath. I just reach up in between the transmission here and the body and take the bolts off. I'll take off the shield. The shield has 3 bolts. If it's still on there, that protects it from the back of the turbo and the up pipes. I'll take them off, and I use these tools here. I'll use a 10 deep with my fixed 1/4" drive ratchet and a 13 with my flex ratchet to get the one bolt off the head. So I'll go ahead and remove the shield, and then let's check the common thing that we find with these is the oil leaks out of the sensor, and it causes too much resistance. So let's go ahead and pull this down and check it out. Okay, I have the shield off. I'm going to go ahead and pull the ICP sensor off. Here's the tools I'm going to use for the ICP sensor. I use my belt wrench. This it's pretty thin. It works pretty good. And I use a snap-on socket here. The part number on it's S as in Sam 6196KR, like King Robert. And it's made just for this ICP socket. It's 1 1/16", so that works pretty good. As you can see up here, shine a light on it. You can see that it's been leaking back over there, so we're probably going to find a problem with the sensor and the circuit. Hopefully it's just the sensor. Usually you can get away with that as long as nobody's touched to mess with the wire loom or it's not too swollen. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the wire off and inspect it, and let's see what we get. Okay, here's another pointer. I have I put the socket on first. I make sure that it's on all the way and it's seated. As you can see, it's up there. And then I'll just take my fan wrench or my the belt wrench and put it on. It's a lot easier. So I'll just take the belt wrench here and then put it up there and go ahead and loosen it up. Okay, here you can see that with the belt wrench on, I have a little bit of bow in the belt wrench that helps out. I can just reach up there and stick it on the socket. It really doesn't have any resistance because it doesn't have the locking tab that helps to retain the socket on it, so it pushes right on. Then I can just get up here and grab the wrench, move it in, break it loose. Once I loosen it just a little bit here, I can reach up by hand and get it. Normally once you break the O-ring off, it's pretty good. You break the O-ring loose. So I'll take the wrench out, reach out there by hand and get it out. Okay, here we have the sensor out. This is the old style. A lot of people use the updated style on it. That's actually made for the 04 and up. They do work, but they read a little different. And as you can see, this one is bad. That's normally what happens with them. The oil will start leaking inside and contaminate the connecting. Okay, here I have the sensor out. This is the one that comes with it, and it's the proper one. It's a 3 Charlie 3 Zebra sensor. It's still available, but I still find that the failure rate is pretty high on these things, even with the new style ones. And a lot of guys, they go with the new style, the 3C ones, the 2003 model ones. A lot of guys will go ahead and switch it over to the newer style, like for the 04 and up. The reading's off a little bit at an idle,
but other than that, I don't notice any performance issues. So I'm going to go ahead and put the new style of 2004 and up on it, and when I do that, it requires a different socket. This one's 1 1/16", and then the new style one here is a 15/16". So I'll go ahead and install that sensor and let's try to start it up again. Okay, I've got the new sensor in there now, and this is what I was talking about, because normally on the 03s, early 04s, with the sensor in the back, or the 3C, 3Z sensor, they normally read about 0.18 of a volt, so not even a 20%. And the newer ones here, you see they read about 1/4 of a volt, 0.24 instead of 0.18, and that causes them to have a little bit of where it thinks it has pressure, but that's not enough to be an issue. But now watch a different result from what we were seeing, and when it's actually getting a true reading now with voltage. So I'm going to go ahead and crank it, and we'll watch ICP what it does and what IPR does now that it really has a reading. Before, it must just go to the default. Okay, here we are, 85%. And it's just right there at the 5,600. So it's trying to start, but that's all the pressure it can create. So we're going to have a pump. Most likely it's a pump on an 03, 04. But we'll go ahead and get authorization, pull this one down, and find out what's up. Okay, we got the approval to tear this one down, find out why the injection pressure won't go up over, barely reaches 600 psi. Being an 03 or early 04, you have no choice but to remove the complete intake manifold because there's a crossover tube in the back. So I'll go ahead and show a few pointers on this one and what we find. Now, a couple of things I want to mention first. You want to check history on it and ask the customer questions. Make sure they have the right oil filter. This has the right lid, so at least we're good there. If it had a tall lid, I'd make sure that it didn't have a small filter in there. I show that on another video. Then you would find out and quiz them, has anybody worked on the injectors? Are they aftermarket or genuine? If you find out that somebody's done the injectors lately, maybe the seals failed on top of the injectors. So this one right here, we know the people, they have not done the injectors, had anybody work on it. The oil's up, all that stuff's good, base engine oil pressure is good. So I'll go ahead and, being an 03, I can't do the air leak test right at the ICP sensor, it's not convenient. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the turbo off, do the air leak test, then keep on going. We'll see the results here in a second. A pointer on these early production ones, when they have the insulation up here, is only found on the 03, early 04s. When they have the insulation up there, I'll take my 8mm flex ratchet and remove this shield. With that removed, the turbo comes out a whole lot easier. And now with the turbo off, you can see the crossover tube I was talking about on back of the intake. This is unique to the 03, early 04 ones. All the other ones after pretty much October of 2003 no longer have this. So you have to remove the intake to get the high pressure pump off. Another helpful hint, when you have the exhaust that's just resting on the intake, it's hard to work around and get anything done. The intake bolts, this shield or anything else. So what I do, I just put a jack underneath it and bring it up some. Just take it, jack it up there and let it hold it up. Remember to leave your handle position underneath the truck so nobody trips over it. Now I don't have to deal with it because everything's easily removed. It's all out of the way here. More tips: if you still have the orange hose, or even if not, you'd want to replace your EGR cooler to your oil cooler coupler hose there, the orange one, and also the where the turbo drain back came out of the high pressure pump cover. Cover that up. I usually just take my turbo drain back tube and stick it back inside of there, because you have to remember, it doesn't take much contamination to stop this engine. Here's the IPR screen and a nickel for reference. All your oil passes through there. So if you get even a tablespoon or a teaspoon of dirt inside this engine, you're going to be replacing the screen multiple times to get it to run right. So make sure it stays clean inside of here. A couple of the things I do, and I have people tell me that I'm wrong the way I do it. I take the fan off. I take it completely off. If not, you have to get to the shroud bolts that's underneath here. And then to get to them and get it out, you're going to be pulling off your throttle body. So I'll take that out. And also I'll just take the whole wire loom. Take the injector wire loom out. And the remaining wire loom, I'll just pull it back here. And then I can put it down here in front. Work it around everywhere. And leave it sit down here. Now I have my whole intake opened up to remove it. You don't have to deal with it. Undo the 4 fuel lines and the 4 bolts to hold it down and take off the fuel filter. Got the 4 bolts and the 4 fuel lines. Before you lift the intake off, I strongly suggest taking a magnet, searching along here, and also blowing out all the dirt before you lift it off. Because if what you don't find now might find its way on top of a piston. I'm telling you that from experience. That impression right there is from a nut, just like that, embedded in it. And this was in a van, in an ambulance even. Make sure you get all the dirt out before you remove the cover. Again, it doesn't take much to stop this engine. So I'll get this all out. And also, if you notice, I have the intake ports all covered. These come on the long blocks. They cover the ports on the long blocks when you order them. So I got some extra ones to keep my intake passages safe while I remove this. So I'll go ahead and clean off all the channel and get this cover off. Once you have the base all clean, then go ahead and get the bolts off. I don't even loosen my up pipes. That way it's positioned right, so when I go back together it's easier. I just use a long 8mm wrench here to get to the bolts, even the one underneath here. Get the bolts out and then lift the cover off. Once you crack them loose, I use this snap-on wrench here. Then go ahead and go in with the ratchet wrench like this and get them all out. Makes it a lot easier. Now whenever I'm doing the pump, I always replace this tube here because I have a lot of failures with the O-ring up inside here. So I always replace that. Just use my disconnect tool here that I get from freedomracing.com. Stick it in there. Pull it off. Now the O-rings that normally fail are inside of here. You can check it up close, but I strongly advise not to reuse it. I mean, it's up to you, but I've done a couple over, and I don't like to do things twice. And then I've got the bolts already loosened on the pump. We just pull the pump up. Be careful not to drop the bolts. And the other thing that I'll say, when you go to put your new pump on, or your rebuilt pump on, make sure you put the yellow O-ring down here. I've had people that put the yellow O-ring on up here and they fail. They burn whenever I see them up here. So make sure you get the O-rings in the proper place. The yellow one goes down here. Here's the part number for the tube, the replacement tube. Like I said, it's always just a good idea to go ahead and put this on. That we don't have any regrets. Comes with a new snap ring, new seals, all that stuff inside of there. So go ahead and put the tube on, and it just slides in. Okay, you have the bolt holes all blown out, so I don't get any hydraulicing from the bolt holes being full of oil. Check your pump. Make sure there's no type of a cap here on the oil feed line, and go ahead and set it down. Make sure your gears line up. Make sure you install a new O-ring here. To replace the screen and the seals, use a piece of paper.